Welcome to another video. In this video, we will see how we are going to develop the Samadhi Bookshop web application using PHP. So we already implemented this application using Java technology under Rapid Application Development. So today, we are going to see how we are going to develop it with PHP. So we are going to follow the same approach or the same steps that we have followed with rapid application development course. So therefore first we are going to download a template of this web application. So you can go to the resources folder of the course page, and then you can see that activity 10 template is available. So you can download that template, and after that you can import that into your NetBeans environment, so that means into the web server. So first download it, and after that so now I'm going to import it. You can go to file, import project, and from zip file, and here you need to browse the zip file. So that is in my desktop. So I added this path, and here you need to browse the exam. So you can go to your example location, and then browse this htdocs folder, htdocs. Okay, so then you can import it. So then your project will be there like this. So now we can run this project. Once you start run, so it will give this problem. So that means this issue, the project URL is not valid. So here you can type your project. So since this is activity 10, so I will put it like this, and then the index file is this. Then click OK, and after that you can run it. So now it's working. So you can see the same template that we have used with our rapid application development course. So let's try to implement this application using PHP. So here again we need to develop these WP concepts here. So you might remember that we have created DB connector class to connect the application with the database, and other than that we had this user class and book class. So now first we will implement these classes. So after that we will see how we are going to complete these steps. So now under source files, so I'm going to create a new folder called classes, because I'm going to put all my classes into this classes folder. So here I need three PHP files. First one is for DB connector, and the other one is for book class, and another one I need for the user class. Okay, so let's start from with this DB connector. So we will add a namespace here. So I will add it as classes. So now we are going to have the class DB connector. Okay, sorry, we don't need this one, DB connector. So when you are going to connect a PHP application to the database, so we already learned that we need to have certain attributes or certain properties. So we will define those things. The first thing is we need to have host. So normally host is localhost. So we will make this private, and then we need to have DB name, database name. So here still we don't have any database, so I will go to the service tab, and under MySQL, so I'm going to create a database called activity 10. Okay, so then we will go to tables, and we will use execute command option, and here we have the SQL command. So we can copy this SQL command. It has some sample data as well, so we can copy this one and then go here and paste it, and now I can run this file. So executed without any error. So that means I have created the table, so you can see these tables. So these are the tables. So if I go to book table, so you can see that we are having some sample data as well. Okay, so now the database name is activity 10. So then so I need to have db user. So here I'm using test user account, so therefore I will use it as test user. So again I need to have db password, the same password. I'm also in here also I'm using test user as the password. Okay, so now these are the properties that we need to have. And in previous activity also I have used in this approach, but today so I'm going to do it in different way. So our rapid application development also we discussed the use of static variables here, because we can create a static method to get a connection. So if you are having a static variables and a static method, so then when you are going to access this one, so we can access this method without having any without creating any object. So that is easy for us, because in this class we are not going to have objects, because we don't need to have objects, because we this method uh, is always so it's mean if it is static, so that means if this method is belongs to the class, so then it's there's no any harm. So therefore we are going to make it as a static one. To make it static, so we will create these variables as private static ones. But we have sometimes you may remember that we have used final keyword as well in under rapid application development, but in PHP we don't have these final keywords, so therefore we are not going to use it. So now I'm going to create a public static function call get connection. So now it's a static one, because I have used these variables as static. So now I have created this function as a static function. So now the first thing is, so we need to have data source name. So when you are creating this data source name, so first we need to have the database, and then host equal, and we will have a value here. So that will be this one, host. But now since these are static, so we cannot access it by using arrow. So we discussed that if it is a static, so we need to, it's a property or a method, we need to use this operator. But now this is with the class, so therefore we need to use the keyword called self, and we need to use host. Again the other part is db name. So db name also, so we can use self. Self means it belongs self means it is in this class, okay. So now again we are going to get the database name like this. So like this we can construct the data source name. So if you are not using static, so then we are not going to use a static method, so then you can use this operator. So you might remember that how we did it in last time. So we did it like this, $this and like this, okay. But since these are static ones now, so we cannot use that operator, so we need to use this operator to access these ones, okay. So now this is data source name. So now I need to have the connection object. So we are going to use PDO class to create the connection object. So we are going to call to the PDO constructor. Since we are going to use the PDO here, so first I need to use PDO here, okay. So now under the PDO, so we need to first pass this DSN and then so we need to again we need to use database user, and again database password. So since these are static, so I'm you accessing it like this. Okay, so since I made this as static, otherwise I can use this arrow mark and I can access dollar this arrow and db user likewise. So we have discussed those things in our last activity, so you can go through it if you can't remember that one. But this is how we are going to do it if we are making it as static. Okay, otherwise you can follow the previous approach as well, so no harm, so you can do it. But here, so I'm teaching you the other way as well, because we need to know the all the ways when you are going to connect our application to the database. So now we have created the connection here, so now I'm going to return so this connection. But we discussed that it's good to have a try catch block here, because if any errors occurred, so then we can handle these errors, so therefore we can have a try catch block. So here we are having PDO exceptions. So since we are going to use the PDO exception class, so we are going to use PDO exception class here. So then we can use get message method to view the message in a user friendly way. And also we discussed that using echo is not appropriate, so we can use die here, because if any database errors, so then we are going to stop here. So we can add a message as well, error in database connection. Okay, so then we can display the error here. So now so under this try part, so we are going to add this code line. Okay, format it. Okay, so now this is my db connector class. So I have created these variables as static ones, and then so I have created the data source name and then connection. So we have created connection by using PDO class, PDO constructor. We are calling to the PDO constructor, passing the data source name, db user and db password. So I have used in this way because I'm using these variables as static variables. So this is how we are going to access the static variable. Since we are in the same class, so we are going to use self as the keyword, not this, because it's a static one, self as the keyword, and then this operator, and after that we are going to call to the property or the attribute or the variable. So now that is okay. So now we will go to the user class. So again we are going to add a namespace here, so that will be classes, and then we are going to have the class, this one is user. So under user, so you can go to the activity. Under user we are having these properties, id, first name, last name. So likewise, so we are going to have these properties, private id, and then we are having first name, last name, username. First name, last name, username, and password and role. So these are the properties we are having. So then we have this method. First one is we are going to override this constructor. So therefore first I will create this constructor. Public function construct. Okay, So under constructor, so I'm having these properties: first name, last name, username, password, role. So first we will create these ones. Okay, these variables, I have created these variables. So now I need to assign these values. So ID and not ID, so this should be first name, and again we are having last name and username, password, username, password, and role. Okay, so this should be first name, this should be last name, and here this should be username, this should be password, and this should be role. Okay, so then that is how we created this constructor. So now the next one is set ID. So that again public function set ID. So since it's a set ID, so we need to get a ID from the outside, and then we are going to set this ID $this ID equal $ID. Okay, like this. The other one is get ID. So we can have public function get ID. So we are not passing anything, but we need to return $this ID. Okay, then we have get first name, get last name, get role. So the getter methods. So these are, so I will copy this one, 1 2 3. So this will get first name, get last name, get role. So here we are passing first name, and again last name, and here role. Okay, and then so we have this register method. So I'm going to create the register method now. Public function register. The register method is expecting value from the outside, so that is the connection object, because we are going to pass this connection object from the outside. Okay, so now here so we are going to create the registration. So that means we are going to register this user. So then so we can first have a query here. So we can have query here, and so if we get any issues, to handle these issues, so first we will use a try catch here, and again we are going to use PDO exceptions here as well. So therefore I'm going to use PDO exceptions with this class, PDO exceptions. So here we will use echo get message. So again this will here also we will use die. So we will use die method here to identify where is this error. So we will name it as error in user class, error in user class, and we will print the error. So now so first we need to have a query. So here query is a insert one, insert into user, and we will see the values of the user: first name, last name, username, password, and role. First name, last name, username. Okay, so these letters simple: first name, last name, username, password, and role. Okay, so these are what we are going to insert these into these fields and values. Since we are going to use parameterized queries, so we are adding placeholders only. Okay, now we are going to create the prepared statement $pstmt, but in this case, since we don't have this $con, so normally in Java, so we are having the data type. So since we are having the data type, so once we use this object directly, the NetBeans knows that we are going to use a connection object there. But in this case, since PHP does not carry any data type here, so this NetBeans doesn't know this is a PD object. So in that case, it's not giving these shortcuts for us to develop this very easily. So therefore, what I'm doing is I'm going to create another connection here, call by calling to db connector and get connection. So now since this is a static one, so I can access this get connection without using object by using this operator, because it is a static one now. Okay, so once I create this one, so now I can easily get these ones. So after creating this class, I will remove this statement because we don't need this one, because we are going to pass it from the outside. But now here I'm going to use it, because otherwise I'm not getting the shortcut. So that means these options, drop down options to do it quickly. So now $pstmt equal $hon prepare. So now you can see we are getting these options, because now the NetBeans knows that this $con is a PD object, because it's returning from this get connection class. So after that we need to set values pstmt dot bind okay, first we have created the prepared statement, so then we need to bind these values. So okay, so we have learned bind value, and here the first one is dollar this first name. Okay, so likewise we can bind the other values. We are in 5 values here. second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one, and this should be last name, and after that username, password and role. Username, password and role. Okay, so we are binding these values. So after binding these values, so we discussed that we have two methods, bind values and bind params. So the difference is, if you are using bind params, so it will add the value once you are going to execute only. So that means not adding the value once you are going to prepare this statement. Okay, so in this case we are using a bind value. So after binding, so now we can execute this prepared statement by calling to execute method. Okay, so once we execute, so now this is actually going to pass. So this one you can see it's going to pass a boolean one. So that means whether we have successfully added this information to the database or not. So we can check it by using the number of rows affected. So in this PHP, when we are using this prepared statement, so we discussed that we can get that one by counting the number of rows. So now we are going to return $pstmt and row count is greater than 0. So we are going to send this one. So this will send a boolean value. Okay, so this is how we are going to implement this register function. So now the next function, here we are having the authenticate function. So we are going to create this authenticate function. So this is again a public function, public authenticate. Okay, so we need to use function authenticate. Okay, I forgot to remove this part. So I told that we don't need this one because we use this one for our easiness. So I'm going to remove this one now, because we are passing this from the outside. So now directly we can use here. So now authenticate, also we are getting the connection from the outside, and again we will use a try catch block here, and then we will use PDO exceptions to handle any PDO exceptions. So here we will make this as die, and so we will add a message error in, okay, error in user class register function. So we will add it like this, then it's very easy. So class register function. So here error in user class authenticate function. Okay, so now we are going to print the error in a meaningful way. So we can use get message. So now again we need to have a query here. Query is now authenticate. So in the authenticate, what we are actually doing is we are going to get the user entered password and also the already saved password from the database, and we are going to compare it. So now in this PHP, so we are having password verify function, so we can use directly that password verify function. So to do that, we first need to get the user already saved password from the database. So that is what we are going to do now. So we are going to use a select all from user where username equal to some value. So this is what we are going to do now. So after that we are going to again create pstmt equal $con. So now again we are getting the problem because now you can see once I use this one, it's not loading these things, because PHP this NetBeans doesn't know this $con is a PDO object, because it's not mentioning here, because in PHP we don't have the data types. So therefore what we are going to do here is I will use this statement again, because now PHP knows that $con is actually PDO object, because this will return a PDO object. So then it's very easy for me to code. After coding everything, so I'm going to remove this part. So now if I type pre, so you can see it's getting. So now in this case, so we need to have $pstmt dot or not dot. So this time also I'm using dot. So bind value, and we have only one value. So this is username. So we are going to use $this username. So now we are going to execute this one, $pstmt execute. After that, so now we are going to get a result set, because it's a select query. So result set equal $pstmt, and we are going to use, since we are going to get only one result, because this is we are going to get only one result, because normally your username is a unique one in a table. So therefore we are going to use fetch. So in fetch, we need to tell how we are going to get the data. So then we need to access the PDO class. So therefore first I will use PDO class here. So I will use PDO class. So I'm going to use PDO class here. And we will use fetch obj. So we are going to fetch it as an object. Fetch it as an object here. Okay, so now we are going to get the DB password. So the DB password is we are going to get from the result set now. So we can access it as an object. So in our database, so we are having the password as password. So therefore I'm passing password here. Okay, so I can get the DB password. And in this case, first we need to check whether we are having any result set. So that means the result set is empty or not, because that's a valid scenario in this case, because if the username is incorrect, we don't have any data with the result set. So that is a very valid scenario in the authentication process. So therefore we are going to have if condition here. If not empty result set, then only we are going to process the result. Not empty result set, so then only we are going to process the results. Otherwise we are going to return a false. So that means this user is not there, so therefore we are going to return a false. So now in this case, so we are going to check whether this RS is not empty, and after that we are going to get the password. So now we are going to use another if to check whether this password is valid. So that means the user entered one and database is stored one is correct. To do that, we are using password verify methods. So we discussed this thing under the theory part. So the password verify requires two parameters. The first one is the user entered password. Okay, so now the user entered password is with the object. So therefore we are going to use the current object, this object, and then we are going to get the user entered password. And the other one is the hash one. So the hash one means the database saved password. So that is with our DB password. Okay, so now we are going to verify it. If it's returning true, that means the user entered the correct password. Else again we are going to return a false here. Return a false here. Okay, now if this user entered password is correct, so now we are going to create we are going to add more information to this user object. So because this user object now having the username and password only, but we can add the id because now we can get id from the database id, and also we can add so we can add first name, so we can get the first name from the result set. So we have in first name like this, so we need to give the exact name, exact column name here, and we can set the last name, and the role. The other one is we can set the role. Okay, and other thing is so since now this object carries the password, so we can remove this password from this object, because we don't need to save the password hereafter, because we did the authentication. So therefore I'm making this as null. Okay, but we can keep the username for future thing. Okay, so I need to put it inside this bracket, curly brace. Okay, so now the password making null, because I don't need to keep the password with this object hereafter, because I have already verified this user. So after that we are going to return true here. So now the authentication is success. So now I'm going to remove this statement, because this is not need here, but I have added it to make things easy for me. So now that is done. So now this function, so again we are having another function called public function update. So we are going to update users. So in this case I'm not going to develop this function now, so you can develop it, but in this case for this activity we don't need this one, so therefore I'm not going to develop this function, but it is available with our class. So that is why I'm going to added it. So in this case also we are getting connection from the outside, so like this update. So now I have completed the user class. So now we will move to the book class. So here also we are using a namespace called classes, and then we will have the class called book here, and in the book class, so you can see that in the book class we are having barcode, name, author, price, quantity, dollar barcode. So this is a private dollar barcode, and we are having name, author, price, quantity. Okay, so these are the properties we are having in this class, and then we have these methods. So the first one is constructor. So we are going to override the constructor public function constructor. Public function constructor. So the constructor we are expecting 1 2 3 4 5 values. So one is dollar barcode, dollar name, dollar author, dollar price, dollar quantity. Okay, so now we need to set these values, dollar this barcode equal dollar barcode, and same for name, author, price, quantity. Name, author, price, quantity. And here also dollar name, dollar author, dollar price, dollar quantity. Okay, so now the other method, get barcode, set barcode. So public function get barcode. So here, since it's a get barcode, so we need to return $this barcode. Okay, so likewise we are having getters here, so we will add the getters, get barcode, get name. So likewise get barcode, other one is get name. So in this case we are going to return name, and get author. So here we are going to return author, and here get price. So we are going to return price, and again we need to have get quantity. We are going to return quantity, and likewise we need to have a set method as well. So in set, so we are expecting a value from the outside, and we are going to set that value here. Okay, so we will have setter methods for name. So set barcode, set name. Here this should be name, and here this should be name, and here also name. And set author, so dollar author, and here also it should be author. And then set author, after that set price. So this should be dollar price, and here also it should be dollar price, and this also price. And after that the quantity, and here dollar quantity. Okay, set quantity, set price, set author, set name, set barcode. So we have created these things as well. And then we have increase quantity, decrease quantity. So we will create public function increase quantity, so we need to have a number to increase. Okay, so increase quantity, and we are getting a number to increase, and in this case so we are going to increase it by using so dollar this quantity equal dollar this quantity plus dollar number. Okay, so like this we can increase the quantity. So we can decrease in the same way, so we can make it as decrease, and we can use minus operator here. So that is how to decrease. So then we are going to update book details. So we will have a public function update book details, update book details, name, author, price, quantity. So those are there. So we can use these things here. And when we are updating, actually I forgot to put it here. So we need to set the dollar con as well here, because we are going to get the connection outside, but I didn't put it, but I will put it like this here, dollar con, but without sending these values. So by setting these values, so we can create it, because we have the setter methods here. So we can set these values, and after that we can get that object and we can do it. So therefore we don't need other parameters, so we will pass only the dollar con here. But in this case I am not going to use this update book details in this application, in the current activity. So therefore I am not going to build the body of this method, but we need the next one. So that is display book details. So I will have public function display book details. So display book details, so we are getting a connection object from the outside. Okay, so now in this case, so we are going to display the books in detail, and we are going to pass an array here. So that means so we need to create these objects, and we need to save those objects into an array. So it's like in Java technology. So we have used a list, and we have added all these objects into the list, and after that we pass that list to the page, the relevant page. But here we are going to create an array, and we are going to pass that array to the relevant page. So in this case we need to have a query first. So first I will add a try catch block, and we will use PDO exceptions here, and so we will use die method, and here error in book class, display book details method. So we will put it like this method, so then it's easy for us to find if there's any error. Method. So here also we can use get message to get a meaningful message. Okay, so I didn't add this PDO exception, so here we need to use first PDO exception. Okay, so if I'm using PDO exception here, so then I can load get message. Okay, so now again here also we need to have a query first. So this will be select all query, select all from book table, and then we are going to have $pstmt $pstmt equal $con prepare. It's not loading because the same problem, because the NetBeans doesn't know what is this $con means. So therefore we will call to this DB connector and get connection. So now the NetBeans knows it's a PD object, so then we can get the methods which are related to PDO. PDO. So now we created this one. So here we don't have any placeholders because we are not passing any values from the user side, so therefore I don't need to set any values here. So I can directly run this one, $pstmt execute. So we can execute it directly. So after that, so we need to get a result set because this is a select query, $pstmt, and then we are going to use fetch all here because in this case we will return many rows. Fetch all, and we need to tell how we are going to fetch it. So then we are going to use the PDO class. Since we are going to use the PDO class, I need to first use it here. So I'm going to fetch data as objects. Okay, fetch data as object here. Okay, so now first we will see whether this result set is not empty. Okay, so if not empty result set, so then we are going to uh, we are going to fetch it. But here we are going to pass the array here, so therefore first I will create an array here because we are going to pass an array. So therefore I will create an array first. So we need to have dollar books. So this is array, dollar books is an array. Okay, so now so I'm going to return this dollar books. So this array I'm going to return. Okay, now in this case, so I'm going to use a for each loop, and so I'm going to use result set as row by row now. Okay, and so I'm going to create a dollar book object. So this will be a new book object. Okay, so now I'm going to create dollar book object. So this will be a new book object. Okay, so now I need to pass the relevant values. So here dollar rs, because we are going to get from the result set now, not rs, because now it's row by row. So therefore it should be dollar row barcode, and again we are going to get the name from the database, and author from the database, price from the database, and quantity from the database. And we are going to create a new book object by passing these values, because we are having a constructor here. So in this class we are having a constructor. So this constructor which is getting barcode, name, author, price, quantity. Okay, so now by using this constructor we are going to create a new object. So once we create this new object, now we are going to add this new object into our books array. Okay, so books array, so we are going to add this new object. So that's it. So once this for each once this loop iterate, so it will create new book objects and it will add to books array. So finally, so we are going to return this books array. So that is how we are going to implement this books class. So now we have all now completed all these classes: user class, book class, and DB connector class. So that's all for this video. So the next video we will see how we are going to use this class and implement this application. So that means the rest of the things. So this is tips how we are going to do it. So we will see it in next video. Thank you.